Hello, and welcome to our session on long-distance caregiving. My name is Mary Beth Rutherford, and I'm a support and education coordinator with the Alzheimer's Society. Today's session is targeted towards people who are caring for someone living with dementia, and the language I'll be using will reflect that focus, talking to caregivers and about people living with dementia. If you are someone who is living with dementia, you may find this challenging to listen to. Let's begin by defining just what is a long-distance caregiver. For our purposes today, we'll define it as someone who is far enough away that they can't just hop in a car and go and help out their family member. Depending on your personal situation, this could mean you are as close as an hour away or on the other side of the country. In either case, you are finding it difficult to be physically present to help the person living with dementia. And of course, this makes this information particularly relevant. We are going to look at several different aspects of long-distance caregiving. First is about recognizing the practical and emotional challenges involved with being a long-distance caregiver. We'll look at identifying some of the resources for the person in your life so that you can help set up a network for them and to help make life easier for them. And that involves learning how to assess and reassess their needs as these needs change. We'll talk about making the most of your visit when you do get to see them. We'll finish up with looking at sharing responsibilities with others. And finally, the question of moving. Should the person living with dementia move closer to you? Should you move closer to the person living with dementia? Perhaps neither, at least looking at some of the issues involved in that, however. Certainly, some of us will be the primary caregiver for the person living with dementia that lives a distance from you. Here is an example of a primary long-distance caregiver. Your mother, who has dementia, lives in Ottawa. You don't have any siblings that live there, and your father died a year ago. So you are the main caregiver for your mom, despite the fact you don't live there. As the disease progresses, your involvement in her life will increase. Long-distance caregiving can be tough or challenging when the person living with dementia is on their own and you are a great distance away. In this situation, many different feelings and fears can arise for us. So what are some of the practical challenges? Firstly, just distance. Even if you are within driving distance of the person living with dementia, they may start to need you on a daily basis, which can be a pretty impossible thing for you to do on an ongoing basis. You have other things going on in your life, such as your own family, your job, your own health situation. So even just being in a relatively short distance from the person living with dementia can be a real challenge. And of course, if you do live further away and do need to fly, the cost and the time with that can add up quickly. How often are you able to afford to go there? If you're working, how much time can you take off? You may have to use all your available vacation time, and that's if you do get vacation time. This unfortunately can lead to your own exhaustion since you're never really getting a break. You may find, certainly as time goes on, as the disease progresses, you're spending more and more time, energy, and effort trying to support the person living with dementia. The conflicting pressures of work, family, responsibilities, and other life priorities can create sort of an emotional distress or challenge for you as a caregiver and balancing your own responsibilities. As a long-distance caregiver, sometimes the disease can seem to progress slowly, and other times you may notice more dramatic changes with each visit. You may also be experiencing the grief of seeing this decline and knowing that the changes will continue to occur over time to the person living with dementia. For many people, guilt and frustration are emotions that go along with being a caregiver. As a caregiver, you may think and feel that what you are doing is just not good enough or just really just not enough. There's also the frustration of not fully understanding the situation. Sometimes people with dementia are able to communicate clearly what's happening in their day-to-day lives. Other times they cannot tell you what's happening with them. Some dementias include hallucinations and delusions. So how do you, as a long-distance caregiver, really know what's happening with them? Perhaps you're feeling very powerless because things are happening and you're not able to just step in and support or help the person living with dementia when they need it. You may have the sense that you should be and really do need to be there more frequently for the person living with dementia, but also know that you need to be at home and also at work. You're left with a feeling of being torn between the different parts of your life. A strategy that can help with those feelings of guilt and frustration would be to take a look at what resources are available in the community where the person with dementia is living. Spend time identifying the needs of the person living with dementia and the appropriate resources they may or will need to access, and then start trying to put these resources in place where and when possible. If you're not sure what resources they need or what is available, call the Alzheimer's Society for help. The more you have in place for the person, the less scary it is because you know that the appropriate resources are there for them. Here's a simple chart to help you organize services that are needed. Start with listing the kinds of services that are needed, and for each one identify who is the contact, what's their number, what are the contact hours so that you can get in touch with them, and that might relate to where you are. If you're in BC and you're supporting somebody in Ottawa, the time difference. For example, if meals are an issue, you are concerned that your family member is not eating enough, not eating healthy meals, check out what meal services are available in their community and arrange for meals to be delivered. Transportation can be another area of need. Look into transit, handy-dart, taxi services, or volunteer organizations. This can help to create a clear sense of what is available in the community where the person with dementia lives. In a smaller community, it can be more of a challenge to find resources that meet the needs of the person living with dementia. But whether the community is large or small, there are some resources that can help in that search. The Alzheimer's Society of BC and of Canada will have connections with the community or region where the person with dementia lives. There are Alzheimer's societies across the country. Connect with them to find out what resources and information they can offer to you, and also what resources are available in the community. The Alzheimer's Society of BC, for an example, has a community resource list with phone numbers and websites to various different services. For example, you may live in Vancouver, but your mother is in Prince George. If you contact the Alzheimer's Society's office in Prince George or the First Link Dementia Helpline, which has a province-wide toll-free number, they will send you the local community resource list. This can help you to reduce a great deal of legwork that would be needed to find all these contacts. Another resource is the internet or the local phone book. It's still a great resource. The phone book will have access to local government phone numbers that you may need to use to find services that are available in your community. And libraries are a tremendous resource for research, either the library in the community where the person with dementia is living or even your local library. It's a great place to start your search for services in their community. Other local resources that can be helpful, such as the Directory of Senior Services. If you can't locate a directory, perhaps call a local senior center and see if they have access to the Community Services Directory. Check in with friends of the person living with dementia, with their neighbors, or perhaps with any organizations they are involved, such as the church or bridge club. Some of these friends, neighbors, may already access services. Check into the network that they have developed. It's important to remember when starting to connect with these resources to develop relationships. Ask for their name and write it down because you will most likely be connecting with that person for services on a fairly regular basis. Work at these relationships. These people, these agencies are going to be key to the person living with dementia being able to live successfully at home. While talking about building a network for someone you are concerned about, it's also important to remember that you will need the appropriate legal documents that indicate that you are in the position to be making some decisions for your family member. And those documents will be different depending on the province the person living with dementia lives in. Here in BC, we have two really important documents. One is the enduring power of attorney for financial and legal issues. The other is the representative agreement, section 9, and that's for health and personal care issues. If you need information about these, we have a recorded session on personal planning you can find on the Alzheimer's Society of BC webpage. The recordings also have links to many useful documents. Remember, however, the legal documentation will be different in different provinces. If your family member lives in another province, then you will need to check that out. The Alzheimer's Society in that province can help you. Again, it is important to know what are the documents that need to be in place in order to support the person living with dementia so that you are in the position to act on their behalf. Here is a story that speaks to this. So let's fill in some details about our example of a long-distance caregiving situation. Doris is 70 years old and lives alone in Ottawa. Her husband died a year ago, and since then, Doris's health has been declining. Her short-term memory is not very good anymore. She has high blood pressure, and her overall level of functioning seems to be on the decline. 2 months ago, Doris was diagnosed with the early stage Alzheimer's disease. Doris has only two adult living relatives, her brother Mike, who lives about an hour away, and her daughter Joanne, who lives in Kamloops, BC. Joanne talks to her mother every week, but cannot afford to visit her in Ottawa more than twice a year. The flight is expensive. She cannot take too much time off her job. In addition, she has two teenagers at home that she can't leave for very long. Joanne is increasingly worried about her mother. She suspects that Doris is not eating well because Doris says she can't be bothered cooking for just herself. Joanne is concerned about her safety. Doris's brother told Joanne that twice Doris left the stove on while she was out. Joanne knows that Doris's poor memory might also affect her ability to take her medications regularly. She wonders if her mom is still able to take care of herself and be safe. Joanne is worried and feels powerless and guilty for not being able to do more for her mother. So the first thing to do is to start by assessing just what are the needs now and in the likely near future. What are the gaps? What are the needs that you can start to address? We'll look at four main areas: health and personal care, mental functioning, day-to-day activities, and safety. Let's begin with health. What are their health problems? Are there any new health problems since you were last visiting your family member? Is there a worsening of prior health problems? For example, with Doris, who has high blood pressure, recently Joanne found out that Doris has fainted when, by accident, Doris mentioned it in passing in a conversation. Also, Doris may seem to be underplaying this incident and maybe other incidences. Doris has always been open with Joanne in the past, but now she doesn't seem to tell Joanne what is happening, and it seems there are things she just isn't sharing. Joanne learns that Doris has actually fainted multiple times. So Joanne isn't sure if she can rely on what her mom is telling her. Is Doris taking her medication as prescribed? This situation may well resonate with you. So when you visit, you will be trying to get a sense of what the health issues are and how they have progressed. Look for changes in their vision, hearing, or are there changes in their sleep habits? Are they incontinent? What about hygiene? In most cases, you can assess this fairly easily when you visit. For example, your mother was always very neat and tidy. You could eat off the floors in your home when you were growing up. Now, when you would go to visit, everything is looking a little untidy, including her. Also pay attention during a visit to see if there is excessive use of alcohol or medication, or are they self-medicating? Before you go to visit, you ask your mom how she's doing and what she's eating. She talks about her meals and says she eats well, drinks her one little glass of wine before dinner. When you go to visit, you discover, in fact, that she has one glass of wine while she's watching the talk show at 4. Then she has a glass of wine when she's watching the news at 5:30, and then she has a drink with dinner. She's forgotten that she has had these 3 glasses of wine already. Are they having difficulty managing their medications? Do you think she is forgetting to take her medication or doubling up on her pills? And is the person not making or keeping those very important medical appointments? In regards to their mental functioning, do they seem to be saying things that they wouldn't have said before? Talking about people in a way that they never talked about people before? Do they seem increasingly muddled or confused? Is their behavior inappropriate? Or are they exhibiting paranoia? They may ask you while you are there, "Why are you visiting me again?" "I've come to see you, Mom." No, but why are you visiting? Are you coming here to check up on me?" They may put up a barrier and not understand what you are doing or why you're there. Are they expressing concern over the phone about seeing or experiencing unusual things? Are they talking about family, friends, or neighbors and accusing them of things that they would not typically do? Do any of these symptoms alert you to changes in their ability to function well? Because emotions are impacted by dementia, note any changes in their usual demeanor. Do they seem to be sad a great deal? For example, are they crying often and for no particular reason that you're aware of? Do they seem depressed? Are they having frequent angry outbursts for no reason that you can determine? Do you notice that they are more fearful than they ever were before? When a person has dementia, even in the early stages, it's not unusual for them to lose confidence in their abilities. It seems they are second guessing themselves all the time. They may be fearful enough that they limit themselves from doing many things they have felt confident doing before. They may also be withdrawing from daily or routine activities. Do you notice that they are isolating themselves from others? During your visit, observe what's happening with their ability to do daily living tasks. Are they still able to do their own shoppings? Can they drive or access public transportation safely? Prepare meals? Be aware that over the phone, your mom may talk about cooking meals, but when you arrive, you discover she isn't able to prepare a full meal. Assess if she's able to prepare simpler meals. Assess her ability to carry out personal hygiene tasks and basic housekeeping. For example, does she realize when last she had a shower or bath? Does she put on a new change of clothes each day? What state is the kitchen and the bathroom in? Does she seem to be aware that these things are not getting done? Dementia can cause changes in eating habits due to many factors: memory loss, vision, problem solving, loss of meal prep skills. Are they forgetting to eat or forgetting that they have already eaten? Related to eating is the ability to make healthy and safe decisions. For example, if you looked in their refrigerator, what would be the expiry date on the food in there? And does the person living with dementia pay attention to that? Dementia can affect motor skills, so their ability to swallow can be impacted later on. The sense of smell and taste are also affected and can impact on what they will or won't eat. Change in peripheral vision can make it difficult for a person with dementia to see food on their plate other than what is in the middle of the plate. So you may observe that food on the sides is left uneaten. Is it becoming increasingly difficult for them to manage their finances independently? You or another trusted family member will need to assess their finances with them if possible. Do they seem to be confused with handling cash, accessing their bank account? How are they managing their finances? For example, have you discovered donations have been made even though they cannot afford to do that sort of giving? Sometimes people become vulnerable to phone, internet, or mail requests for money. Unpaid bills or bills that are going back for months may be piling up that need to be organized and a new payment process put into place. Be aware of possible large and expensive purchases being made that are no longer relevant to the person. For example, your dad, who used to enjoy boating but hasn't done it for 10 years, puts now down a down payment on an expensive motorboat. Given his mobility issues, he will never be able to use that boat. Persons living with dementia can also be very vulnerable to scams. Be aware that when you are talking to them on the phone, are they mentioning the CRA, the grandchild in trouble, money-making schemes, anything that doesn't sound legitimate? Use strategies such as call blocking. Be aware of any new friends that appear in their lives. We want them to have friendships, of course, but a person living with dementia can be very vulnerable to predators. So if their new friend is not appropriate for them, much younger perhaps, then this can be a sign you may need to check out the friendship further. The issues is something you can assess when you go for a visit. Go with a critical eye, looking around the house and yard, looking for situations that pose a safety or falling risk. Are there things they can get fixed? You may also have to assess how they are doing in the bath or shower. You may not see what's going on in there, but listen to what the person has to say can also provide some clues for you. They may say that they are making bathtubs too high these days. I can't get in very easily. Meanwhile, it's the same bathtub that they've had for the last 20 years. How are they transferring in their chair? Are they having difficulty getting up? Could this affect their ability to move quickly enough if an issue arises? Have a look to see if they have burns or bruises or cuts on their body. That might be a sign of them having safety issues with the stove or oven, with stairs or outdoor chores. Sometimes, with their impaired comprehension, the person living with dementia could try to repair things and then actually make them much more dangerous. Their vision is declining, but they think the lamp just isn't working, so they try to fix it. Potential hazard. Are there issues developing that raise concerns for you regarding their safety? Do they leave appliances on? This is something you can observe when you are there. Have you noticed that they wander outside the house inappropriately dressed for the weather conditions? When they go out, do they leave their door unlocked or have they locked themselves out of their place? And has this happened more than once? If they're still driving, assess their driving skills when you're there. Suggest to your mom or dad that they take you for a scenic drive so you can get a sense of their driving ability. Try not to react to any observed changes in the moment. Make a mental note and later write down what you observed for reference. If driving is a concern, it may be dealt with in conjunction with their physician or with the motor vehicle branch. It's important to assess their openness or understanding of the disease to be able to talk about the changes you are noticing. It may not be effective to discuss the changes you are seeing if the person has no insight into their situation and/or disease. Observe and listen to any changes in their social habits. Were they normally very social and now that you are seeing them withdrawing from friends and family and becoming increasingly isolated? Are they finding it hard to interact with friends or are their friends struggling when they interact with them? This may seem very overwhelming, all the different areas that you need to observe and pay attention to. What do you need to do? Let's look at some suggestions by looking at our example of Joanne. And Joanne is planning a 10-day visit to Ottawa. She talked to her mother and her uncle and shared with them some of her goals for the visit. Here are her goals. To visit with her mother and uncle, she plans to visit with them. And that's really important to keep in mind. When there are lots of things to do and lots of things to think about, it can be really easy to go into the tick off the to-do list kind of mode. But the main thing on the to-do list is to see and spend time with the person that you love. So that's the top thing on Joanne's list. She's also going to evaluate her mother's health and living conditions, to look at and evaluate some of the things we've just been talking about, to find solutions or resources with and for her mother. Her uncle mailed her some of the resources available in Ottawa, including contact numbers for Doris's doctor, health worker, and neighbor. Joanne made appointments with all of them. Joanne is determined to see as many people and resources as she can during her visit to Ottawa. Joanne made a directory of all the contacts included in Doris's care. She will share it with her mother and uncle. You do want to use your time well, but you want to avoid the kind of swoop in and swoop out when you are going in. You are doing 20 things and then you're out of there. I remember one caregiver some years back. Her father was in the care home at this point, but she would still have her to-do list because she was still very involved in her dad's care, albeit at a distance. She would swoop in with her list of things to accomplish and said in retrospect that she thought that the staff started to hide under their desks when they saw her coming. She was able to recognize that she needed to just kind of gear down. She needed to get to her list, but the important thing was the personal connection and spending time with her dad. So in terms of visiting, plan your appointments ahead of time. Research local services as much as you can do from a distance and pull the person with dementia into this planning process as much as you can. Keep in mind that one of the key things we hear from people living with dementia is nothing about us without us. You don't want the person to feel as though you're swooping in and going there to do something for them. So as much as you can, do the planning with them. Reassess their needs whenever you visit and keep an updated list of their medications, their medical history, local emergency numbers, and contact numbers, and keep it in an easily accessible place. You may need it in case of an emergency. Are there any other family members in the area who can help? In Joanne's case, it is her uncle. So as much as possible, she's drawing her uncle into the circle of support. As a family caregiver, it's important to recognize that you may not be the only caregiver. It's Joanne's uncle, but it might be your siblings or cousins who live closer to your parents, for example, than you do. You want to help, but you can't do it 50-50. And in most families, the other family members who live close by don't expect 50-50. But what you can do is to look at what is possible for you. So perhaps that means that every summer you come and visit for a full week or 10 days so that your brother can go on a vacation. Things like that are appreciated by the people that are on site. Looking at other friends and neighbors in the community, it could be that young couple who live next door to your mom, where you aren't asking them to really do much for your mom, but you are asking them to be eyes and ears. It could be the group of friends that your mom gets together with for coffee every Saturday at the local community center. Just talking to them and saying, here's my number and email. If you are concerned, please let me know. Just doing that, reaching out and talking to others. Service agencies, contractors, nonprofit agencies, social clubs, these are all potential organizations that can help to form that network and can help to share some of the responsibilities. And of course, the key people in the person's care, social workers, doctors, and others. Joanne is shocked to see how much her mother has changed. It's been 6 months and much has changed. Mom has lost a lot of weight and looks much older than the last time Joanne saw her. She seems frail and unsteady on her feet. Her memory is worse than she anticipated, but she still seems mentally alert. She's happy to see Joanne. After a few days of visiting her mother and staying at the house, Joanne thinks she has a good idea of the situation. She observes several problems and comes up with the following solution. Doris has lost weight and is not cooking and does not seem to know what to buy at the grocery store. Joanne has arranged to have meals delivered to her mother's house 7 days a week. She showed her mother how to cook frozen meals in the microwave and prepared a shopping list of frozen meals and food that requires no cooking that her mother can buy at the grocery store. Doris is not taking her pills regularly and she's missing medical appointments. Joanne bought her mother an electronic pill dispenser with an alarm. She talked to the pharmacist and he agreed to combine Doris's heart and Alzheimer's disease medication into blister packs. Doris agreed, somewhat reluctantly, to allow a support worker to come to her house once a week to help with organizing the pills into the pill dispenser, driving Doris to medical appointments, cleaning the house, and doing the laundry. Socialization. Local church group will pick up Doris for Sunday services and bring her to church outings when Doris is interested. The neighbor, who knows Doris well, agreed to help keep an eye on Doris's situation and report to Joanne. Encourage Doris to go with her to the senior center at least once a week. Help Doris make decisions about the house maintenance and repairs with the assistance of Doris's brother. Safety concerns. Joanne sold the stove and bought an induction stove instead. That is not hot to the touch. She had a contractor install safety bars in the bathroom. Household maintenance and repairs. She found a contractor that she trusted to do repairs and maintenance on the house. Doris's brother will be the contact person in Ottawa and will help evaluate the work that needs to be done. The lawn maintenance will be done by a landscaping company and Doris's neighbor will be the contact person. And finally, the finances. Joanne sold Doris's car. She only used it twice in the past 6 months anyways. She will use the money to help pay for some of the services that her mother requires. Joanne has arranged automatic monthly payments to pay the mortgage, the credit card, and the utilities. She and her mother contacted a lawyer and made a power of attorney. So for now, Doris and Joanne have set up a safe situation for Doris to live in. But with this visit has Joanne thinking that the future and what to do if things begin to change. Like Joanne, you may consider the possibility of a move. There are, of course, both advantages and disadvantages. In considering a move, look critically at the pros and cons. Here are some advantages of a move. You will know what is happening and will be close by if your parent needs help. You have some control over making the environment safe and secure. A move may save money. The price of traveling back and forth and maintaining two households can be costly. Possible disadvantages of a move. By moving, the person may be leaving long-time friends and a familiar community. Your parent may be reluctant to become dependent on you for practical help. There may be a qualifying time if the move is interprovincial. For example, to be eligible for community support services, someone has to have lived in BC for 3 months, which means that you cannot just move someone from another province into government-funded long-term care. The following are questions to consider when you and your family make the decision about a move, because you and your family will face major changes in your own lives. Think about whether the person living with dementia wants to move. What sort of a relationship have you had with the person living with dementia in the past? If it has been difficult, it will not improve under stressful conditions. Will your family doctor care for your parent? Is your family physician familiar with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias? Can you find a doctor willing to care for your parent? Will your parent be able to meet others? Are there opportunities to socialize? Consider whether you are considering a move to be close together or to share the same household. Do you and your family want your parent to live with you, or would it be better to just be closer in the same community? If you're thinking about sharing a house, consider whether lifestyle differences between your family and your parents cause discomfort or conflict. Will the household provide enough space and privacy for everyone? Is the house safe and convenient for a person with dementia? If not, can you make needed modifications such as an entrance ramp or grab bars in the bathroom? Will your parent have opportunities to contribute to your household if he or she wishes? Are you and your family prepared emotionally, physically, and financially to support your parents' disabilities? Can you provide supervision and hands-on help with personal care when it's needed? Or can you arrange for professional help? Whether you're sharing a house or not, consider whether you will have opportunities for respite or relief. Can other relatives, friends, or neighbors help out occasionally? Can you arrange for paid in-home companions or other temporary care? Will the move save or cost money? Can you afford any needed home modifications and supportive services? Will you or other family members have to give up your job or reduce your working hours to provide care? How long do you expect the arrangement to last? Is it acceptable for a limited amount of time or as long as necessary? Are there facilities in your community to help you when you feel you can no longer give care in the home? If the move includes a change in province or country, do you know the details of the regulations regarding the transfer of health insurance? Moving to the person can be an option, but you will need to look at the practical considerations such as your work situation or financial ability to make that move, as well as many of the considerations from the previous slide. Will you feel resentment for having to give up your life to support the person living with dementia? Is there someone caring for them, or if your other parent is in the picture but unable to do all the caring needs that have to happen? A move could be positive and relieve you of the guilt or consent concerns you carry while being a long-distance caregiver. You may consider this as a short-term move while you establish another living arrangements, or is this a permanent move for you? A year later, Joanne notices that the illness has progressed. Doris's memory is worse. She seems more easily overwhelmed by her environment, and she sometimes gets disorientated. Doris agrees to accept more help in order to continue living alone in her house. Her support worker is now coming 3 times a week. Doris and Joanne are also working at putting together a local Ontario equivalent to a representation agreement. Joanne realizes that her mother's illness will get progressively worse and she will not be able to live in her home forever. Joanne and Doris have had discussions about this, and Doris has agreed that when it is no longer safe for her to stay at home, she will move to long-term care. She has also agreed that she will trust her daughter's judgment on this. However, Joanne knows that when the time comes for Doris to move to long-term care, she might not have the insight to assess her own situation objectively. Joanne has decided that during each visit of her hers to Ottawa, she and her mother will visit a long-term care home. She will present this idea to your mother as doing some research as to what's out there. Joanne will also talk to community care about the process of placement. Joanne knows that the situation with her mother is progressing and she will need to constantly adapt to the changes. She understands that she will not be able to provide all the care that she would like to from a distance. She's come to terms with the situation, even though occasionally she feels guilty for not doing enough for her mother. And to summarize, assess the needs of the person. Where are the holes? What are the concerns? Plan early. This can be a long process, and the person living with dementia will need time to process any changes to their routine. Identify local resources. You may even be able to connect before you arrive and set up appointments, hence making your visit as productive as possible. Collaborate. Make connections with people who will provide the local services that your family member will be accessing. Make the most of your visit by scheduling the things you need to do and by scheduling the organizations and people you need to visit. But also make sure to spend time with the person living with dementia. Involve the person in the process. Sometimes the extensive planning and decision-making required can be overwhelming. Plan your discussion at a time when the person with dementia will be alert and comfortable. Consider several short conversations rather than a long, complex conversation. And observe, is there a conversation creating undue stress? Do I need to stop and raise the issue another time? Is it appropriate to involve them, or should I be making this particular decision on behalf of the person living with dementia? This may mean having many conversations about what is going on and what is available for them. Review the information and the recordings on personal planning and on communication on the Alzheimer's Society of BC website. Be flexible, compromise. Share the responsibility. Who else can support you with the jobs that need to be done? Be realistic. How receptive is a person with dementia? What is your life circumstances? Maintain a support system around both yourself and the person living with dementia. And take care of yourself. On a rough flight, it's suggested that you put on your air mask first before you help anyone else. Remember, the job of being a caregiver is like taking on a full-time job. It's work that requires tremendous mental, emotional, and physical stamina. Be prepared to experience difficult emotions. Be prepared to feel tired and overwhelmed sometimes. It's a big task, and you will likely need some time to recover from this process. If you have any other questions or concerns or are seeking information, please don't hesitate to call our Dementia Helpline. In English, our services are from Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Our services in Cantonese, Mandarin, and Punjabi are from Monday to Friday from 9 to 4. Thank you and take care.